So here we are, Battle of Veseris. Hard choice for me for the Romans. They constantly have this first activation with their Samnite Cav leader. And so far I've been passing on it every time. And I still do not have a good attack to launch. If I move forward, I expose it. It's exposed already. I essentially have to fall back if I want to protect them. But there's no good attack for them. They can't hit this, they can't hit these, they can't get flank attacks on anything. I think I'm going to have to go with the forward assault. I'm outnumbered though with the cav, and whatever I do, I'm going to be sacrificing my cav to launch them. I think I've got to move them back. I mean, they just are incapable of hitting anywhere, and they are at risk. Alright, decision made. Well, the cav launched its attack due to the withdrawal, perhaps. I'm not sure, but its attack on the Roman infantry, and caused some definite damage there. We have one place where they stood off, but otherwise we got them having chased down. And then after the Romans got a chance to rally some of their forces, this guy had a 3 momentum action where he rallied some of the stuff back here, came up, rallied some of the, what is that, 1st Legion good stuff, and then launched that against flanks. Now, just a couple of units. You can't do line commands. Had to be all the same color because he's only a prefect. But he was able to actually kill a second, and this is the I think the elite Principe unit or whatever, which is pretty big. So that's what, 14 more points. You know, we're getting almost to the 2/3 point for breaking the Romans, and that unit was just squished by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Speaking of which, someone hit it. That would be this guy. And I'm gonna make some possible rolls there to see if people run. One of the Latin units ran after hitting a flank of one of those Principes. Heavy fighting on the flank as well as in the center. The Roman units that we're holding there are largely broken up. We have one here, you know, one here, just the scattering. But for the most part, we're driving back, and it's to the Principe line at this point. But they have a clear line, and they can surge forward. They're not going to get a move in the near future, I don't believe. I'm looking for a Roman leader. I don't see one. Oh, we got this guy back here. Alright, well, we'll do him. So, he's going to start his rallying, and I'll just... Oh, die roll of doom roll. Turn ends. Alright, well, I'll be flipping over lots of counters at this point. This is the position where the turn ends. The Latin right flank did not get to drive its blow home. It held off. The fighting happened all on their left flank and in the center. Now, they did quite well, but this was probably where they were doing the best before, and they're kind of regretting not being able to slam forward. The one advantage, I looked up the Triarii line, it's a 3 hex range. There's nothing quite there yet, but it's getting pretty close. 1, 2, 3. Alright, so time for some bookkeeping and counter flipping. Well, now with some of the informational counters off from covering up, and the informational counters usually indicate that there's fighting going on. So here with the no missiles, that means these guys haven't been able to recover their missiles. So there's little pockets of Roman resistance where you see those. But everything else up here, to this line here, these are Romans here. Of course, these are Latin Cavs sneaking in behind them. Is where the Latins have already advanced. Their army looks so much more potent at this point. Yes, they're seeing some units fleeing the board. There's no question. They're doing something a little different from how I usually play. nobody's really too worried. Now, maybe had I gotten an activation with one of their decent leaders, they would have tried to recover things. But nobody's really been recovering the troops for the Latins. When we look at the numbers, we can see it's not that big a deal for them. They've got 39 route points. The Romans have added up 106. There's very little chance for the Romans to win. Once you start getting a disparity of any size in the route points, it becomes hard, very hard. Among other things, this was an evenly matched battle. The losses that the Romans have taken mean they don't have the army, and that's pretty clear here. But also, you know, they need less than 50 losses to go over the edge, whereas the Latins need, what, 110? That's a huge difference for even armies that were somewhat unbalanced. Say the Roman army had some great reserve coming or something. It would still be a tough fight. And the only thing close to a great reserve is that Principe line. And here's the problem. This thing has been able to recover large amounts of strength as it's advancing. It hasn't been pressed hard. Now over here, it's pretty hard pressed, but there's nothing left to fight it. The Principes have already been committed there. I don't know if the Triarii line's even going to be able to come into this, because the Roman losses are so high. I mean, if that Principe line cracks, why it's over. You know, if that thing starts falling back, it's over. All right, on to another turn. Well, the Samnite cav was finally cut loose, and they charged out and hit a couple of Latin cav that were kicking around there, chased them off the board. Boom, there's 13 points right away. Of course, the Samnites are now off the board too, and that means all the pro-Roman cav is gone until it recovers, and it'll take a bit to bring it back. And the Latins finally committed their right flank cav again, smashing in not only to the Principes, they got them close enough, and they actually got 2 activations here to smack these pretty heavy units. Not only to get them close enough, but to trigger the Triarii, but they also smacked the Triarii line. They figured no matter what, they're going to come close enough to set that off. So now the battle enters a new stage, and all the Roman units are committed. Well, speaking of which, it's Manlius's turn to act, and he's got to commit his Principe. And maybe, yeah, he's not going to get that Triarii line moving. There's no question there. He's not close enough. The Romans just can't seem to buy a break in this one. The Principe line moved forward in part and crushed what was kind of this advanced guard of the Romans, the units that had pushed too forward. Though one of them ran up into some javelin throwers and turned around and ran back. But then Manlius did not get another activation, so he's got another line that was ready to move, and then he had some rallying he wants to do. It's looking really bleak. That I would have trumped in an attempt to beat him there. Ooh. I missed one combat. Got to do that one. But then it's going to go back over to the Latin leader, and he should be probably able to, if not break the Romans. Right now they're at what, 21, 26, 132, 18 more points. How many are waiting to go offline? 10 more waiting in close range that are going to leave. He's probably not going to destroy the Roman army on this turn, but it's probably going to be close enough that I just will call it rather than fight another round. Those Triarii, there's just not enough to affect this. We'll see what turns up at the end of the round, at the end of the turn. So yes, again, I'm going to call this one. This game is very easy to call things early, not in this particular scenario, but the great battles of history and maybe some other tactical games where it's just so clear. There's obvious victory conditions. Rome's at 142 points. 8 more, they're out. Well, there's way more than 8 running off the board. Could I save them all? Hey, maybe. But if I'm running around making that kind of effort to save my units and rally them, a whole nother flood is going to get hit and sent flying by the outflanking and the attacks on the Triori line, etc. And it's just, it's inconceivable that A, the Romans aren't going to break, B, that the Latins are going to break in this next turn. So I see no point in, playing something like this out. It's an interesting scenario. It looked like a blowout here, and that's more, I think, a matter of me still not really getting a grasp on just, mechanically how to avoid taking that kind of loss. There were heavy losses early on. The Roman velites looked like they did well. But still, things swung over. And I feel like I have an idea how to use the cav and not a great idea how to defend against it. The one game where I succeeded in that was in defending against a cav advantage without terrain was by creating, a square, basically. And cav is very, very potent in this. It has the ability to leave the battle, or to leave when it's approached, which is perfectly fair. It also has the tremendous outflanking advantage. And as long as you don't have a terrain anchor, things become very bad. We saw over here, it was harder for the Latins to activate their cav, even though they were facing less of it, partially because of the terrain situation, I think. It was much, much easier to use this large space over here and maneuver, whereas just the threat of the smaller cav force anchored near the infantry made it much, much more difficult to advance. Anyway, I'll send this one up. It's definitely, I think, kind of a cute little battle, even though it's kind of annoying to fight Roman versus Roman for a number of reasons. One of them is the depth of the two lines. That's enough to make it interesting, though, so I wouldn't want to take that away. The other, of course, is the counter mix. You get used to... the colors don't mean much of anything. You get used to the shape of the Romans, those little hollow squares. And when nearly everything is like that, and there's no real sensibility between the colors that you have chosen, it's a tougher game. Now the game is called SPQR, and it's generally the Romans fighting other forces. Although some of the scenarios like this one, or what we played recently with the Carthaginians facing Carthaginian rebels, it's not quite as clear, and you have things that are kind of the same color facing each other. That's the price you pay for, expanding something like this. Anyway, up it goes.